Good afternoon. We are convening the Committee on Public Safety and Military Affairs this afternoon amidst a flurry of hearings going on all throughout the building. And so we are going to start with House Bill 1769, House Draft 2, relating to correctional facilities. And note that this meeting is being streamed live on YouTube. In the unlikely event that we have to end the hearing due to technical difficulties, the committee will reconvene to discuss any outstanding business on Friday, March 27th, 1 p.m. in Conference Room 016, and a public notice will be posted on the legislative website. This afternoon, each testifier will be given 1 minute to testify. If you have already submitted written testimony, please limit your time to highlighting important facts or standing on your testimony. First up is relating to correctional facilities, requires the Director of Corrections and Rehabilitation to incrementally return committed felons incarcerated in private out-of-state correctional facilities to in-state correctional facilities, and requires reports to the legislature. First up, I believe we have Office of the Public Defender, Haley Cheng. If not, next we have Director Johnson for Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. Not here yet. Office of Hawaiian Affairs, McKenna Woodward. Welcome.
Aloha, Chair. Mahalo for hearing this bill. McKenna Woodward on behalf of the Office of Hawaiian Affairs in strong support of this measure. The state said continent incarceration was temporary in 1995, and 30 years later, about 800 men are still in Arizona, which tells us this temporary fix became the status quo. If out-of-state incarceration had solved overcrowding, improved rehabilitation, and reduced Native Hawaiian overrepresentation, we would see that in the data by now, and we do not. Native Hawaiians continue to bear disproportionate harm in this system, and sending Pa'ahau thousands of miles away only deepens family separation, cultural disconnection, and barriers to successful reentry. This bill does not require an immediate return, but it does require phased progress, clear benchmarks, and meaningful legislative oversight. DCR says capacity is the obstacle, but the Oversight Commission and the broader public record show there are real opportunities to improve classification, use underfilled lower security facilities, and move people through the system more intentionally. At this point, the question is not whether everyone can come home tomorrow, but whether the state is willing to act at all. Mahalo for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Correctional System Oversight Commission. Are they here? Okay, maybe not. Next, we have Community Alliance on Prisons, Kat Brady.
Aloha, Chair Fukunaga. Community Alliance on Prisons is in strong support of this measure. The corporate profiteers who own Core Civic only are concerned with their bottom line. Many of our people have died there or have been hurt. Hawaii kind of takes a hands-off approach to that, which is really troubling. As of March 16th, the weekly population reports from DCR show that there is room in Hawaii prisons. Kulani, with an operational capacity of 200, has 77 people there. That's an operational rate of 38.5. And Waiava facility, with an operational capacity of 335, has 165 people with an operational capacity of 49.4%. Each person who's incarcerated has family that love them. We respectfully ask the committee to exercise care and concern that is lacking at DCR. This is a Menini start on the road to justice. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Imua Alliance, Chris Caulfield.
Aloha, Chair. Chris Caulfield speaking on behalf of the Imua Alliance today in support of this bill. At times, Hawaii has held one of the highest rates of incarcerated people in out-of-state facilities in the nation. As you've already heard, Incarcerating hundreds of people in private facilities like Saguaro has a detrimental impact on individuals themselves, separating individuals from family, cultural connection, legal support, reentry services. These are critical for successful reintegration. Research has consistently shown that maintaining family connections, especially during incarceration, improves reentry outcomes. It reduces recidivism risk, whereas out-of-state incarceration raises serious concerns about oversight, accountability, and private prisons are operated for profit. And federal studies have found that private facilities often experience higher rates of violence, contraband, safety incidents compared to publicly operated facilities. And as has been previously said, we would note that this disproportionately would impact Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders who are incarcerated thousands of miles away from their Aina culture and community. So we hope that you will move this measure forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we have Shelby Pikaku, billionaire on Zoom.
Not on Zoom, Chair.
Okay. Next, we have, let's see, Aloha Independent Living Hawaii submitted written testimony and support. Jamie Miller for Ekolu Mea Nui on Zoom.
Yes. Aloha.
Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Jamie Mahelani Miller. I'm the co-executive director of Ekolu Mea Nui, and I'm in strong support of HB 1769 HD2 for decades. I stand on my written testimony. I just wanted to point out that based on what everyone has said and shared, that, you know, for years, Hawaii has relied on the private out-of-state prisons, a system that really weakens accountability for the state, and it prioritizes costs over rehabilitation. And it really is time for us to end the reliance on that and take responsibility for our own people. So in short, you know, this bill will provide a structured responsibility pathway to do that gradually by bringing people home. And that public safety is the strongest when accountability and rehabilitation happen close to home. We have the capacity, as we heard, we have data, and we have voices from the inside telling us that they want to come back. So I respectfully urge us to support HB 1769 HD2. Mahalo.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Next, we have, let's see, Drug Policy Forum of Hawaii, Nicholas Leverance on Zoom.
Not on Zoom, Chair.
Okay. Next, we have, let's see, Kawai o Hawaii Iki Anakalea Kila in person. Okay, maybe a little bit later. Next, we have Rishanda Mikaele on Zoom.
Not on
Okay.
Zoom, Chair.
All right. Next, my notes show Carrie Ann Shirota in person.
Aloha Chair Fukunaga, Carrie Ann Shirota, an attorney justice advocate in strong support of this measure. As you know, this practice of transferring our people out of state started 30 years ago. And a number of states also engaged in out-of-state transfers as a temporary solution to deal with overcrowding. But we're 30 years in deep. We've never had a strategic plan to systematically bring people home. And as supported in my testimony, you can see a number of other states face a similar challenge, and they had the will and the ability to bring people home. California, at one point at its peak, sent out over 10,000 people out of state. In 2019, the governor made an executive decision to live up to his promise when he ran for governor. And in 2019, since then, 0 people transferred out of state. So it really comes down to political will. And I'm so grateful that lawmakers are making this a priority. For all the reasons you've heard, this is harmful to families and for individuals. And I think lastly, we've heard a lot of bills about immigration. Do we really want to invest our taxpayer dollars in the same companies that are kidnapping and detaining immigrants, our neighbors? So thank you for the opportunity to support this measure.
Thank you very much. We're going to return to the beginning of the agenda. I believe we had skipped over Office of the Public Defender, Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, and Hawaii Correctional System Oversight Commission. Ms. Johnson? Good
Hi,
afternoon.
Chair. My name is Kristen Johnson. I'm the Oversight Coordinator with the Hawaii Correctional System Oversight Commission. I apologize, it's been back-to-back hearings, so thank you for calling me back up. The commission supports supports this bill regarding to, my apologies, bringing people back home from out-of-state facilities. We're extremely concerned about the usage of any private facility, but especially out of state. It makes it extremely difficult for us to oversee those different entities, to be able to get out there and make sure that people are treating in accordance to how they should be treated. The other piece that I wanted to mention is that out-of-state facilities don't have to follow Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation policies or procedures. And so things are very different there. And people are treated very differently there, which we are concerned about. And so we are in deep support of this bill. We hope it moves forward. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to testify on House Bill 1769, House Draft 2? I covered primarily individuals who had requested to testify in person or on Zoom, but we did receive 54 testimonies in support, 1 testimony in opposition, and 1 with comment. So please proceed.
Thank you, Chair. You have our written testimony. I just happened to be in the room. I'm Josh Frost. I'm the policy advocate for the ACLU of Hawaii. We stand in strong support of this bill. You've already heard lots of reasons why this is worth doing. I just wanted to highlight a couple things. One, this policy of shipping prisoners to the continent was meant to be a temporary stopgap to address overcrowding. This has now been policy for the state for 30 years. We believe it's time to end that policy and bring them home. We also don't believe that the state should be supporting the prison industrial complex. Saguaro is privately owned and operated, and you also heard from the Correctional Oversight Commission that it's hard to keep track of, the people that we're responsible for. No, that's it. Thank you. We hope you move the bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, returning to the beginning of the agenda, Director Johnson, we kind of have a lot of hearings going on this afternoon, so we're racing through
I'll
the
just summarize my testimony.
hearing schedule.
And I
So,
apologize for being late, but I was upstairs in another hearing, just got
yes,
done.
they're all going full blast because we do have to finish hearing all the measures
Okay.
by today
So-
in order to.
so-
our deadline.
I just need a minute then. We oppose this measure because simply we don't have the room to return 25% of the people currently on the mainland. The previous testifier was correct. In 1995, the state started sending its first batch of prisoners to the mainland for 300 folks, and it was supposed to be a temporary stopgap measure. However, the state is in dire need of a new jail and a new prison. If we return these inmates to our facilities, we're going to create an overcrowding conditions that's going to make the conditions inhumane, and we then open ourselves up to possible litigation from the DOJ. So I would say either we build a new medium security prison or we add a 248 bed module to the Halaba Correctional Facility to appropriately house these folks. That would be considerably cheaper than a new prison, but it would also allow us to return those 250. We would ask that any return of a large number of inmates from the mainland be tied to the construction of a new facility or a new dormitory in which to appropriately house them in a medium security setting. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, why don't you remain at the table?
Sure.
Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on House Bill 1769? Okay, if not, Chair does have a couple of questions
Yes, ma'am.
for the department because, according to your testimony, the amount of individuals that are sought to be returned exceeds what you believe your capacity would be to house them because of the uncertainties of what your jail population or prison population might look like
Correct.
at any given time. What, I guess, do you attribute the reduction in the number of inmates that are held in Arizona to over the last several years? Because it looks as though the department is sort of reducing the number of inmates that are being housed there. And it would seem as though, you are achieving a level of reduction even as we speak. Is that not a fair statement?
That is correct. And back in the mid-2000s, we had just over 600,000 people in our custody and care, and we had 2,400 people on the mainland in the Saguaro facility and another facility across the street called the Red Rock facility. Right now, we have about a little over 3,700 people in our custody and care. That includes about 800 folks, 797 in Arizona. A lot of that is attributed to changes in the criminal justice system where the courts have sentence people to probation and resentence to probation instead of prison. And a lot has to do with some jail diversion programs. But I would like to state that I do not control the population in the prison. I have to take everyone that is sent to me from the courts and the Hawaii Patrolling Authority. So it's impossible for me to gauge what my population is going to be at the end of today until the last court run comes in and see who's remanded to our custody. There's no way I can tell you how many people we're going to have on the mainland or here 2 years from now. So that's why I think the bill is a little bit, it's well-intentioned and we want to bring the inmates back, but I don't think we should bring them back to inhumane conditions. And if you've toured any of our facilities, they're old and antiquated and man-intensive, and we just need new facilities. And we do need to look at how much money we spent over the decades on private prisons as opposed to buckling down and building the facilities we need here and improving the economy and doing rehabilitation here and providing jobs for our communities here and not on the mainland.
Okay, well, I think that's a fair statement. This is a report, that was generated by the what is that? HCR 85 task force.
Yes.
Of creating better outcomes, safer communities.
Mhm.
This was released in December 2018. And among the recommendations of the study was really a shift towards a more rehabilitative model.
Yes.
And looking towards reentry, reintegration. And in that particular study, this report called for examining the feasibility of building smaller facilities rather than larger facilities, because the emphasis was going to be on really rehabilitation types of programs.
Mhm.
And so, I guess my question is, what steps is the department currently taking to move forward with recommendations contained in this study, as well as some of the other studies that your department has also undertaken?
We're trying to shift to a more rehabilitative model instead of one that the public may see as punitive. So we appreciate the legislature support. Last year, they allocated $4 million in our budget to help with reentry efforts. We're in the process of going out to RFP for a good chunk of that money to build out our reentry efforts. And I think what you'll see in working with the Oversight Commission in the next year or so, you'll see those reentry efforts really being fleshed out. The Oversight Commission did a fairly detailed report on our reentry efforts, and basically we were failing because we didn't have the staffing or the funding. We did get the funding now we need to get the staffing. We have repeatedly asked for staffing for our reentry offices, for additional case managers to bring the case management caseloads down. We've asked for money to, as you know, maintain the facilities, to repair and maintenance to CIP, but we compete with the need for new schools, new roads, highways. So we get our fair share of the pie, if you will, but corrections is not sexy and it operates 24/7, and it requires a greater amount of funding, targeted funding, to improve our system across the board, not just intake and assessment, but what we do with the person when they're in our system and how we help the person reintegrate back into the community. And we're willing to work with all takers to try to improve our system. Right now, our system is about 10 years behind on our facilities. Our newest facility was built in 1985. It is currently, the design capacity is 629, which is the Halawa Correctional Facility. We're now approaching 900. And it's been like that for a long time. And that puts a lot of wear and tear and strain on the infrastructure, the water and the sewer. We have 2 minimum security prisons that are, some people say underutilized, but we say that the inmates don't qualify. All beds are not equal. So we're redoing our inmate classification system. I provided information to the committee and to the Oversight Commission to take a look at. So you can see we are making progress. We are moving forward. Unfortunately, things take time. And I know the push is to get things done right away, but we would prefer to do it right the first time. And to do that, it will take some time.
Okay, well, I think, 2018, that's been kind of a long time. That's 8 years ago. And with the studies that have been undertaken, everything seems to be pointing in the direction of returning people back to Hawaii and looking for, ways to have them take advantage of programs that may be appropriate in Hawaii that contribute to their long-term success.
I don't disagree, and that's why I put forward the option of constructing a new module at Halawa Correctional Facility to plug into the current infrastructure, water, sewer, and electricity, and we then can bring 248 people back from the main. But we do need to have facilities to put them in, and not just facilities, we need to have facilities with the room and the capacity to provide the programming and treatment that they need.
Okay, well, thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
your comments. We have many bills and resolutions before us, so let's continue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next measure is House Bill 1628, House Draft 2, relating to compassionate release. Let's see, first up, we have Director Johnson. Sorry, I should have asked you to remain.
So I'll just summarize my testimony. We oppose this measure, and I want to make it clear, we're not against compassionate release. We have a compassionate release program in place now. In fact, as the administrator of the HPA, I helped set up the expedited process we have with the prosecutor's office and now with the Department of Correction and Rehabilitation. We oppose 4 points in this bill. One is that we do not believe that people who are serving life without the possibility of parole should be considered for compassionate release because the governor hasn't commuted their sentence to life with parole yet, so the Hawaii Paroling Authority could set a minimum term for which to reduce to allow the person to get out on compassionate release. 2, we don't believe people who are serving a mandatory minimum term imposed by the court should be considered for compassionate release because the court imposed the mandatory minimum term for a reason, and most likely by statute, because there are mandatory minimum statutes out there that require the judges, for instance, for repeat offenders, to impose a certain level of a mandatory minimum term. Third, we believe that this may infringe on the governor's right with respect to commuting the person's sentence. I did provide a diagram with information on 20 people serving life without the possibility of parole now in our system have committed a total of 111 crimes, which is 5.5 crimes apiece. Most of them are murders, rapes, kidnapping. Some are multiple murders. Now, I'm not saying everyone serving life without the possibility of parole should never get out. I'm just saying that the governor should have the opportunity to commute their sentence so they can be considered for parole after HPA sets a minimum term. I also believe that the department also believes that in order for these folks to get out, and HPA can provide more information on this, they have paroled people for compassionate release, but there's no place for them to go. Once the care homes out there that can provide the services they need find out that they're convicted felons, they don't want to take them. A lot of times they need a higher level of care than a regular clean and sober home can provide, and the families sometimes can't provide that level of care. So I think that's something to also consider. Even though HPA, like the last 13 applications in the last 3 years that came before the Hawaii Paroling Authority to grant compassionate release, they granted all 13 of them. However, not everyone could be released because they did not have the appropriate residence to go to that could meet their medical needs. So they end up languishing our facilities. We end up providing hospice care, and it is expensive, but HPA cannot release them to the street. So even though it may seem inhumane, it may be better for those who cannot find a residence to take care of them to remain in custody so that we can provide the level of care that they need. And when we can't, then we send them out to a hospice care or to a hospital. And then we initially pay for that, but then the federal government reimburses us for those costs. Anytime an inmate goes out overnight from the facility, we get reimbursed from the federal government.
Well, I think part of the whole, purpose of the compassionate release legislation has been to identify instances where individuals whose medical needs are so advanced and so great that the cost that the state is bearing exclusively at this point is not eligible for any kind of federal subsidy or Medicaid assistance. So, the goal is really to help the state save some dollars so that those dollars can be used, in other areas. So
I don't disagree.
It's not a either or.
Yeah.
I think we just need to find, that happy medium. Thank you
Okay.
very much for your testimony.
You're welcome.
Next, we have Crime Victim Compensation Commission. Pamela Ferguson Bray with comments.
Good afternoon, Chair.
Good
Pam
afternoon.
Ferguson Bray, Executive Director of the Crime Victim Compensation Commission, offering comments in opposition as it relates to issues relating to crime victims in the bill. Criminal justice reform must not only serve the interests of offenders, but must also include meaningful protection for the interests and rights of crime victims. We do not believe there's meaningful protection for crime victims in the bill. While there is notification about the release decision coming up, there's not an opportunity for victims to be heard. And so that really deprives the paroling authority of information they need to make a determination about what the risks are to the victim and the community. Probably doesn't give victims the time to create a meaningful safety plan or to create release conditions that would necessarily safeguard a victim's safety. We believe all those issues can be addressed. And in fact, the National Council of State Legislators, the National Crime Victim Law Institute, all have a compilation of all their provisions relating to notification and the right to be heard for crime victims. We also are concerned that the provision to create a task force, a working group to create the administrative rules, there's no voice for victims on the task force. There's nobody representing the needs of victims. And we think that then there'll be a set of administrative rules where the victim community has not been heard, and that it will not turn out to provide protection for crime victims. Thank you very much. We like I said, we do believe that these provisions can be included in the bill. And I think that suggesting, and having been to the last hearing, congratulations that it's a model, that everything has been included. That's if you haven't considered the rights and needs of crime victims in making your bill, then thinking that it's a model when you haven't included crime victims, I think really underscores what the problems and issues with the bill are.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Office of the Public Defender in person. Okay, if not, moving on to Hawaii Paroling Authority, Mr. DeMello. Aloha.
Hi, good afternoon, Chair. Gene DeMello Jr., Chairman, Hawaii Paroling Authority. So we do not oppose compassionate release at all. You know, you heard the director mention the 13 cases that we had in the last 3 years. All 13 were granted compassionate release. 8 of those offenders were actually released. 4 are still granted release, but there is no placement for them. So that's kind of being held up until we can find a suitable placement. And 1 had unfortunately passed away after being granted compassionate release prior to getting a placement. So there is one section in the bill that we would like to suggest an amendment, and that is persons serving a mandatory minimum term should serve that term in full before they could be eligible for compassionate release. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Office of Hawaiian Affairs, McKenna Woodward.
Aloha, Chair. McKenna Woodward on behalf of the Office of Hawaiian Affairs in support. OHA supports the current language because it creates a more workable framework by clearly defining eligibility, allowing applications to be initiated by medical staff, the incarcerated person, or a representative, and placing an affirmative duty on the department to identify and refer people who may qualify. OHA also appreciates the broader eligibility criteria, including terminal illness, debilitating or irreversible conditions, cognitive impairment, and cases where the department cannot provide the level of long-term care needed or where care would be more appropriate in a community setting. The bill also improves transparency and accountability by requiring a hearing within 10 business days, notice to the prosecuting attorney for victim notification purposes, and annual public reporting by both the department and the Hawaii Paroling Authority. OHA supports keeping eligibility open to all persons incarcerated by the state, including people serving mandatory minimum sentences or life without parole, because compassionate release is a medical and humanitarian safeguard, not a relitigation of guilt. Finally, OHA supports the working group because implementation will be stronger if rulemaking is informed by corrections staff, the paroling authority, the oversight commission, lived experience, legal expertise, and subject matter expertise. Mahalo for the opportunity to testify. We respectfully urge the committee to pass this measure.
Thank you. Next, we have Attorney General's Office, Mr. Tom. Oh, not Mr. Tom.
Good afternoon, Chair Fukunaga. My name is Lisa Tamura. I'm from the the Department of Attorney General. We do offer comments on this bill. We support the intent, as you understood from Chair DeMello and from Director Johnson. There is already a compassionate release program that's ongoing. It is, set up to go. The problem, of course, is always going to be where to place the person. And that's where the holdup has been with, as Mr. DeMello has pointed out, the person needs so much medical care that they have to wait for a bed to open up in a nursing home or a hospice or something. We only ask that certain, I guess, parts of the bill be amended in order to specify and clarify, say, what is a terminal illness that qualifies? What is a debilitating or irreversible condition? There's, asthma is a chronic condition or a debilitating condition. Does that constitute an illness that would qualify compassionate release? I think the bill needs to be clarified a bit in order to make that clear. We also ask that the HBA be granted the discretion. I know the bill requires the HBA to grant compassionate release unless there's two exceptions. Basically, the person doesn't meet medical criteria or there's an unreasonable risk to public safety. I think the department would prefer that the applicant show, like if they were just applying for parole, the applicant would have to show that they have a plan to live in the community. They have, they're going to show that they can live in the community without violating the laws or presenting a risk to the safety of the community. We think that those conditions should be imposed upon an application for a compassionate release as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your testimonies. Next, we have Hawaii Correctional System Oversight Commission. In person, thank you.
Hello, Chair Kristen Johnson, the Oversight Coordinator with the Hawaii Correctional System Oversight Commission. The commission is in strong support of this bill. I just wanted to focus on a couple different comments that you already have a written testimony that kind of outlines our stance. One of the pieces is medical criteria has been brought up a couple times. I just want to make it very clear that the language currently mirrors language that's already utilized in DCR's policies and procedures, Core 10 1G 11. So that's already the medical criteria that's being utilized for the current compassionate release process. The other piece that I wanted to point out is some people have noted, well, we already have a process. Well, it's fine, but we're the only state in the nation that doesn't have it embedded in our mandates. We're the only state. A part of the importance of this bill is actually including life without parole and mandatory minimums. And one thing I want to be very clear about is that the bill does not say we're going to release all life without parole or mandatory minimums. It's very specific to the medical criteria. This is a very low amount of people. We already don't have a significant number of life without parole. For the people who might be medically eligible, who are life without parole, we're talking maybe 5, maybe, or less. For mandatory minimums, I just want to briefly state, it would be shocking to me if it was the legislature's intent that if somebody receives a mandatory minimum of 10 years and they receive a debilitating, horrific diagnosis at year 6, that the legislature would want the state to pay out for that significant medical care and watch them suffer and die in prison. That doesn't feel right to me or the commission, and I don't think that that was the intent of the mandatory minimum law. And so I just wanted to make those couple of notes. I'm of course here for questions, and thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Louis Erdeshik, Hawaii Disability Rights Center on Zoom.
Not on Zoom, Chair.
Okay, next we have Community Alliance on Prisons, Kat Brady.
Aloha, Chair Fukunaga. We're in strong support of this bill, and we really like this bill better than the Senate version. So no dispersions, but this bill is more comprehensive and really addresses the issue. So we work directly with people who are incarcerated, and many of them have served as medical aides, cleaning up after people who are unable to feed, clothe themselves, who are just bedridden. So when people say we don't want them to commit crimes when they get out, well, I don't know how they do that, actually, because most of them are in such terrible shape that they're unable to do that. This bill is really about compassion. It's about the Aloha Spirit Law. It's about seeing humans rather than their actions that got them incarcerated. So to me, that is just shameful that the department only looks at people by the reason that they were incarcerated. I'm embarrassed for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Ekolu Meanui, Jamie Miller on Zoom.
Hi, aloha, Jamie Miller with Ekolumea Nui, and I am in strong support of this measure. Compassionate release is about dignity, responsibility, and smart public safety. Individuals who are elderly, terminally ill, or permanently incapacitated pose little to no risk, yet remain incarcerated at extraordinary costs. This bill creates a clear, accountable process to ensure those who qualify are considered fairly and in a timely way. And then for Native Hawaiians, incarceration at end of life further separates people from ohana, aina, and the ability to pass with dignity. So we can hold people accountable while still honoring their humanity and dignity. So I respectfully urge your support on this bill. Mahalo.
Thank you. Next, we have FAMM, Molly Crane on Zoom. Okay, that does not look like Molly
I'm here.
Crane. Nikos Leverance for Hawaii
here.
Health
Sorry,
Harm.
can you hear me?
Oh, okay. Okay, please proceed.
Good afternoon, Chair. Thank you so much for the opportunity to testify about this measure relating to compassionate release. My name is Molly Crane, and I'm an attorney at FAM. We are a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization, and we've worked on compassionate release for over 25 years in every state and in the federal system. We strongly support this bill and respectfully request 2 small amendments, adding an effective date and allowing other incarcerated people to initiate the process. As you know, compassionate release is the best practice and exists in the federal system in every state because lawmakers recognize that people who are critically ill are the most expensive to incarcerate, the most burdensome to care for, and the least likely to recidivate. I discussed many of the wonderful features of this bill in my written testimony, so I'll only cover 2 of them here. The first strong feature is medical eligibility. The medical criteria in the original bill matches the Department of Corrections' existing policies and aligns with best practices across the country. The second strong feature is allowing individuals of all sentence lengths to be eligible. People serving mandatory minimums or LWOP are eligible for compassionate release in the majority of parole-based states, and it will allow the bill to achieve the cost-saving measures we detailed extensively in our testimony. We asked to remove this language in Section C restricting who can initiate the process. Medical staff in DCR are stretched thin and may not have the capacity to note when someone is sick enough to qualify. People who are dying may lack the physical strength to submit themselves for medical release. Other incarcerated people play a vital role in ensuring that no one slips through the cracks, and there are numerous safeguards in the bill to make sure there are no frivolous requests. We also ask for an effective date so this bill can begin fulfilling the legislature's purpose as intended upon passing. We thank you so much for this bill, and we encourage you to pass it.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, going back to Hawaii Health and Harm Reduction Center, Mr. Leverance, please proceed.
Aloha, Madam Chair. Hawaii Health and Harm Reduction Center strongly supports this measure. We also ask that the bill be amended to restore the ability of other incarcerated persons to help with an application for compassionate release. Often these eligible patients are too ill to initiate the applications, and correctional medical staff are overburdened by their immediate workload. H3RC has long supported the implementation of a mechanism where the state's correctional authorities are able to reassign prisoners who require a high level of complex and costly medical care into community-based settings that are more conducive to their ongoing medical needs. H3RC also supports a data collection and public recording requirements to help ensure that DCR is implementing the policy adequately. I will also note that the argument against it saying that it would interfere with the governor's commutation powers is rather novel. Mahalo for the opportunity to provide testimony.
Thank you. Next, we have Dennis Dunn on Zoom. Is Mr. Dunn available?
I am
Welcome.
here, Madam Chair. I'm Dennis Dunn testifying in opposition to this measure. I will start out by saying I am a strong supporter of compassionate release, but I believe this measure is lacking in several ways. To begin with, there is no provision for identification or consideration of the concerns of victims of the incarcerated person, or that they be addressed prior to compassionate release. In some situations, the proposed release location, for example, might be problematic for the victim. Or, for example, the victim's residence or workplace may be near the release location. By prior consultation notification to victims, we will assure that the release locations are appropriate and successful. I guess that the other thing here is that although victim notification is included in the current language, there is nothing that specifies the best way that this should take place, and only references notifying the prosecutor. Since many of these cases are many years old, prosecutors may not have contact with the victims. I believe by setting up a process whereby people could sign up, be notified in advance, and sign up for the VINE automated notification system, that would make this work better. And then just finally, one thought. I'm sorry. Also, the proposed working group does not include any victims advocates or people with experience working with victims. So these are concerns in the administrative rules may not be addressed. Finally, I just want to point out there's been a lot of talk about best practices and model legislation and so on. But I will point out that virtually every other state that has a provision for compassionate release in their statute has specific advance notification to victims. And if we want to, in fact, use best practice, we want to have model legislation, we need to have advance notification to victims as part of this measure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. Next, we have Luana Patterson on Zoom.
Not on Zoom, Chair.
Okay, if not, turning to Robert Mertz, who has signed up to testify in person.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chair. My name is Bob Merce. I just would like to say I think I'd like to see the bill pass just as it is right now. I think what 1628 has done is a good thing and doesn't need much modification at all. But I want to take the little time I have to just point out one scenario that people are not thinking about. With life without parole and the mandatory minimum sentences, the person gets sick. When they get sick, they go to the infirmary, whether they're coming from Arizona or they're coming from some other facility or here, they end up in the facility. They get worse in the facility, and what happens? You can't release them, so they go to the hospital. And we have, I think, there's at least 3 of them that I know of right now that are in the hospital. And then the hospital, Queens is the primary one. Then they've got this person and they say, okay, now they've gone from a critical condition to a lower condition, but we want to return them, but we can't because we have an infirmary that cannot take care of people with this degree. So I was at a meeting last week. A person is over there and they're saying, Queens is saying, help us. We can't afford to keep this person. They don't need acute facility. We need the bed. You can't send them back. We stick them there. But if they have compassionate release, we can get them out. We can get them into some other type of facility. But while they're in prison, while they're in the hospital, there have to be guards with them. They're chained to the bed. It's just a horrible situation. So we really don't solve anything by ignoring these people who have life without parole and mandatory minimum. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Carrie Ann Shirota on Zoom.
Not on Zoom, Chair.
In person, sorry.
Lord Chair, Senator Carrie Ann Shirota in strong support of this measure. For a number of reasons, this is a humanitarian thing to do. This reflects our values in Hawaii. We have some of our jails and prisons, as we hear, with decrepit conditions. But also, Chair, as an attorney, you understand that we have a legal duty to provide standard of care for individuals. And if that standard of care falls, that the state can be subject to lawsuits, and even doctors can be subject to personal liability. And we know that there's a shortage of medical care. The infirmary is at a very lower level of care. And so again, if we fail to provide that, not only is there state case law that's clear, but there's also federal case law to say that we're on the hook, and that means taxpayers. The cost savings from this measure are indisputable. Money saved can go towards reintegration program. It can go to victims, survivors of crime. And so let's make the best use of our funds responsibly. Let's follow best practices. And last, I want to say, the Attorney General did not raise any legal constitutional claims whatsoever with this bill. It does not infringe upon the governor's clemency powers, nor does it infringe upon the judiciary. Lawmakers have the right to pass laws, including changes to sentences. And if you decide that compassionate release reflects our values and is a best practice, then ultimately HPA, DCR, and all of us need to respect that decision from you as lawmakers. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe we have come to the end of those who have signed up to testify on the measure. We had a total of 33 in support, 7 in opposition, 2 with comments, and many of the individuals submitted written testimony only. If you'd like to come forward, please do so. Welcome.
Good afternoon. My
Please
name
let-
is Matthew Tapite. I'm the executive director and founder of an organization called The First Lap. LAP is an acronym for Life After Prison. So I've been housing men released from prison since January 10, 2002. You know, I was a former convict. You know, I took a person's life in 1988. Exactly 3 months later, the family retaliated and took my older brother's life as well. So since coming out of prison, I was able to turn my life around, you know, through the help of my church, you know, and mentors. You know, so since that time, you know, I was able to make amends with my victim's family in 2014. 2015, I received the Hero of Forgiveness Award, which I didn't even know we had such a thing. You know, and since that time, I was able to meet a lot of great people in this world who's making a great impact. And one of them is Father Greg Boyle, the founder of Homeboy Industries, the biggest gang intervention drug rehab in the world. So I was able to meet him in 2017. I became one of his keynote speakers in LA. You know, he received the Presidential Medal of Freedom Award, you know, in 2024. You know, so just meeting a lot of these people, they've seen the compassion I've shown for a lot of people. You know, mainly I'm a former gang member as well. So a lot of guys followed my path. We all served time, got out, you know, they just were inspired to see the work I've been doing. And today I have the privilege of doing Bible studies with them every Saturday mornings. So they've turned their lives around and, you know, just seeing, being more compassionate to our community. So we do a lot of community service work, you know, out there. Just this morning, I received an honorary certificate from the city council. So I was there this morning, you know, being honored with that certificate, you know, just to be out there to help serve our community any way we can. So I'm in strong support for this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, is there anyone else who would like to testify? If so, please come forward.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. My name is Susan Mahiai. And my daughter is one of the victims for a heinous crime. So my daughter is the little girl that got shot in her head, Richiana de Guzman, little over 2 years ago. I'm strongly support this bill of compassionate. My daughter has had no help with victim advocates. They have a suspect, not enough evidence to prosecute, but still me and my family had the compassion to forgive this person or persons that did this to my daughter. My daughter continues to struggle, but continues to progress. And I just feel we need to be more compassionate, with everybody that did wrong. You know, we need to give them one chance, that there is a chance to change. You know, I've heard this one person that's in prison right now. His name is Bo. He did not kill nobody. They gave him 3,999 hours in prison. He's still in there. Where's the compassion for him? He did not shoot nobody, and he's stuck in prison. Really, really for nothing. I just feel we don't have to treat these inmates like animals. They're very sickly, and I think they should go home with their families and let the families take care of them.
Thank you for your
Thank you, Madam
comments.
Chair. God bless you.
Good afternoon, Chair and Senator Court. My name is Mizana Algar, and I just want to elaborate on what Susan shared about Edward Stanley, who was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole on an attempted murder. We just heard from Matt that he murdered somebody. Well, Edward did not murder anybody, but they sentenced him to 3,999 years. He already served 40 years. He has certificates from the wardens on his good behavior. He been the work line for the ministry, the Christian ministry. And I just want to add that please, the director, the attorney general, the governor, and the Hawaii Paroling Authority, he applied for commutation 3 times and got denied. These are the people that approved that. He was Lingo, Abercrombie, and Ige, and got denied. It's a template that they just rubber stamps. He applied for Governor Josh Green, and I'm hoping that these people who is in opposition of the life without take a good look at his files and realize that he did not hurt or kill anybody, but he was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. So I ask that you guys pass this to help people like Edward Stanley to have a fair shot at a second chance in life. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to testify on this measure? Senator Court, any questions? Okay, if not, we're going to keep moving forward because we do want to make sure we get through our agenda before the day is over. Next up is House Bill 1752, House Draft 1, relating to emergency medical services. On this measure, we have, let's see, General Logan for Department of Defense. Thank you, General Mitsuyoshi.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. Brigadier General Retired Neil Mitsuyoshi for the Adjutant General. The department stands on its testimony and support and is prepared to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much. We also have comments from Department of Health. Is anyone from Department of Health here? Okay, if not, next we have, let's
Sorry, Chair,
see.
Department of Health is online on Zoom.
Sorry. Please proceed. Mr. Hall. IT, the audio is not coming through.
Sorry, Garrett. It seems like we need to troubleshoot your audio.
Aloha.
Oh, there we go
Can
ahead.
you hear me now? Aloha. Okay, Garrett Hall, Chief of EMS for the Department of Health. We offer our written comments. We do support this. However, we do not believe it's necessary for this to continue to move forward because there are 2 measures that have already been amended to adopt this exact language, and they're moving through. They both crossed over House Bill 2314 and Senate Bill 3134, which have been amended to this exact language. So we just wanted to share that and offer our comments. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. I'm sure that at this point, we want to keep as many vehicles moving as possible. Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to testify on House Bill 1752? Okay, if not, we'll turn to House Bill 2078, House Draft 1. This measure relates to habitual violent crime, requires the Attorney General in consultation with the Criminal Justice Research Institute to submit ongoing annual reports to the legislature. First up, we have Attorney General's Office. Oh, in person.
Chair, members of the committee, Deputy Attorney General Mark Tom for the department. Department provides testimony in strong support of House Bill 2078, House Draft 1. The current draft essentially extends the sunset date for this section and requires some data collection. This bill is part of the Law Enforcement Coalition, which is made up of the Attorney General's Office, Department of Law Enforcement, the Chief of Police of each county, as well as the prosecutor's office from each county, and is submitted with unanimous agreement. I'm here for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Honolulu Police Department, also in support on Zoom. Mr. Tope.
Afternoon, Chair and members. I'm Acting Major Dason Tomo of District 6 Waikiki of the Honolulu Police Department. HPD supports House Bill number 2078 relating to habitual violent crimes, Act 213. Has enabled law enforcement to protect the community from those violent offenders who habitually choose to inflict violence upon their victims. People who routinely resort to the use of physical violence to resolve conflict or victimize others are the most dangerous among us. Many times, the criminal offenders who commit the most heinous crimes have a long history of propensity towards violence. House Bill 2078 would allow law enforcement to apply sufficient consequences for these antisocial behaviors. Repealing the sunset date will ensure that law enforcement will continue to have the proper tools to address these crimes. Also, statistics have shown that Act 213 has not been overly used to prosecute people, nor has it dramatically increased incarceration. Rather, it has been used judiciously to identify those who may escalate to more violent criminal offenses and to prosecute the worst offenders. HPD urges you to support House Bill 2078 relating to habitual violent crimes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Community Alliance on Prisons, Kat Brady, in person.
Aloha, Chair Fukunaga, Senator DeCourt, and Senator Lee, Vice Chair Lee. We're always curious how a place like Hawaii passes laws like this. So I did some research, and actually this law and other laws are based on eugenics, which started in 1900 to make sure that Black people never reproduced. And to me, this is just shameful that we're actually thinking about this. So they passed laws because they said the best way to prevent certain individuals who've been convicted of crimes from reproducing. It's a set of belief that originally underpinned the country's habitual offender laws. So what really concerns me is that we label people and we actually create criminals. And that is really not what we should be doing. All the news is about crime is decreasing. It's amazing, the decline. Some of the laws, they're more punitive than they were in 1900. So what are we doing? We're incarcerating people. We're creating a criminal underclass. And to me, that is doesn't comport with the Aloha Spirit Law. So I included a lot of research on the crime decline in my testimony, and I hope you read it because crime is declining in just about every category.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have ACLU. Mr. Frost has submitted written testimony in support. Carrie Ann Shirota in person, in opposition.
Lord Chair, Vice Chair, Senator Carrie Ann Shirota, I oppose this measure. I do not oppose the fact that we should be collecting data, but the data should be collected before we start throwing spaghetti out on the wall and trying to see what the outcomes are for public policy. There is research to this year after year of how do we decrease crime and particularly violent crime. And for some reason, even though we demand evidence in a lot of other fields, education, economics, environmental, climate change, for some reason, A lot of times law enforcement agencies will come and say, there's crime rates, even though other times we see the numbers dipping. And we hear on the media constantly a bombardment of crime rising. And so people are fearful. And when we're fearful, we're not looking at the evidence. And sociologists and criminologists who have looked at these challenges in other jurisdictions and have studied these issues and what you need to do in terms of strategies to actually decrease crime, to make us safer, to have less victims. And so I have pointed out to you, there's a number of studies here from Council of State Government strategies of what we can do, but incarcerating people, particularly those who mostly will be targeted, are houseless people with mental illness, putting them to jails where they will not get care, and also oftentimes are more likely to be assaulted or killed, is not the solution. Let's invest in best practices. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else to testify on House Bill 2078, House Draft 1? Members, any questions? Okay, if not, turning to the last measure on today's agenda, House Bill 2581, House Draft 2 relating to emergency management. I believe we have Ted Kefalis testifying for Grassroots Institute of Hawaii in person. Submitted written testimony in opposition. Let's see, next we have First Justice on Zoom.
Not on Zoom, Chair.
Okay, next we have Tara Gregory, individual on Zoom.
Aloha, can you hear me? Hello.
Please proceed.
Okay, thank you. Aloha, Chair Fukunaga and Senator DeCourt. Tara Malia again, Gregory. I am a resident and community advocate. I do stand on my oral testimony in my last two written testimonies. I just wanted to add that also last week I did oppose this bill and you did defer with the expectation of the necessary amendments that they would be made. I just wanted to add to that with everything going on to the amendments, just to ensure that the Lahui and the community are involved from the beginning of an emergency proclamation through its duration and into the aftermath. As we see, I sent up the follow-up email requesting specific language changes, including the removal in Chapter 127A of the replacement of the sole judge provision, and I hope that you did receive it. What we're experiencing right now shows exactly why this matters. An emergency proclamation was issued days before these storms, yet the preparation and coordination fell short, and the community has had to respond from the very beginning, during, and now in the aftermath. I was personally boots on the ground and saw how the community was 100% there for one another, providing food, services, rescue, and in many cases, life-saving situations, bringing bulldozers in to rescue Kupuna, and the city and state were not there at the time. Only 4% of Hawaii residents can afford flood insurance, and many are living along the waterfront and in the marina communities, and they cannot obtain coverage at all. As we speak, and last night and today, Governor Green and the mayors are being questioned directly by the community regarding their boots on the ground efforts and the government's lack of preparedness. Now, Governor Green is asking the federal government to assume 90% responsibility, yet under state law, the governor and the mayors have 100% authority and capacity to act ahead of time, but they didn't. Under Chapter 127A, 14, they remain the sole judge of the existence of the danger and continuation of the emergency. If that authority rests with them, then so does the responsibility. As I stated in my written testimony in closing, the community did show up, and mahalo. I would hope that these amendments are strongly considered. Thank you so much for the time to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. That brings us to the end of our agenda. Is there anyone else who would like to testify on House Bill 2581? If not, we'll take a brief recess. Good afternoon. Returning to the agenda for Committee on Public Safety and Military Affairs. On the first measure on today's agenda, House Bill 1769, House Draft 2 relating to correctional facilities. Chair notes that there are several measures that have been encouraging reduction of the DCR population out of state. And so we're going to take a crack at a slightly different approach in this draft. One of the testimonies had recommended that the department return 5% of the number of felons in fiscal 27, 10% of the number of felons in fiscal 28, 15% of the number of felons in fiscal 29, instead of the 25% in fiscal 29. So acknowledging that there may be some facilities issues, the goal is really to get started and really make progress as we seek to reduce our out-of-state population. Are there any questions, concerns? If not, then Vice Chair Lee for the vote. Chair votes aye.
Just with amendments.
Oh, sort of pass with the amendments.
Yes.
As identified.
Okay, voting on HB 1769, recommendations to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Senator Hashimoto and Senator Inouye excused. Senator Decourt.
Aye.
Chair, the recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. House Bill 1628, House Draft 2, relating to compassionate release. There are a number of really good recommendations that have come forward in this version of the bill. However, given some of the time constraints that we are under in order to meet our deadlines, Chair recommends that we pass with amendments to insert the contents of Senate Bill 2688, Senate Draft 1, and to identify some of the areas that we would like the next committee to take a look at in our committee report. Any questions or comments? If not, passing with amendments, Vice Chair Lee.
Voting on HB 1628 HD2, the recommendation is to pass with amendments, noting Senators Hashimoto and Inouye excused. Are there any reservations or no's? Hearing none, recommendations adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. Turning to House Bill 1752 relating to emergency medical services. Chair recommends that we pass with an amendment to insert a new effective date of July 1, 2055. Any questions or comments? If not, Vice Chair Lee for the vote.
Voting on HB 1752, HD1, the recommendation is to pass with amendments, noting excused absence of Senators Hashimoto and Inouye. Are there any reservations or no's? Hearing none, the recommendation is adopted.
Okay, next measure is House Bill 2078, House Draft 1, relating to habitual violent crime. Chair's recommendation is that we pass this measure with amendments to insert a new effective date and to note some of the concerns being raised during the testimony, which sort of were somewhat unexpected, but we'll note those in the committee report and continue moving this bill forward.
Voting on HB 2078, the recommendation is to pass with amendments, noting excused absences of Senators Hashimoto and Inouye. Are there any reservations or no's? Hearing none, the recommendation is adopted.
Okay, last measure on our agenda is House Bill 2581, House Draft 2, relating to emergency management. Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments to include the original contents of House Bill 2581 as Part 1 and to add the proposed SD1 as Part 2 in the bill. Any questions, comments? If not, Vice Chair Lee for the vote.
Voting on HB 2581, the recommendation is to pass with amendments, noting excused absences of Senators Hashimoto and Inouye. Are there any reservations or no's? Hearing none, the recommendation is adopted.
Okay, that brings us to the end of our agenda. Thank you, everyone, for your presence. We're adjourned.